Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we are bringing it back to our X-Men Series Rewatch of films with The Wolverine, which is probably one of the more glossed over films when it comes down to the X-Men series as a whole. For what reason, I don't really know. I think it's because Logan came out and everybody wanted to talk about Logan and how Logan was the best X-Men movie of all time. I don't even know if I agree with that assessment. I know that it's a good movie and I like it and everything, but I also like The Wolverine for a variety of different reasons. And I will get into those reasons. Just know that it's a good movie, it's a good, strong sequel, it's a strong spin-off specifically. I just don't know why everybody points to Logan, says it's a fantastic movie, and they forget that this movie even existed to begin with. But we'll get into that. What's this movie about? Well, this movie takes place after X-Men The Last Stand, which is actually surprising that it considers The Last Stand as a real movie, where Days of Future Past kind of rewrites it altogether and makes it so it never existed, whatever. Anyways, he's recovering, or at least he's trying to recover from what he had to do to one of his closest friends. Anyways, it's not going very well. He kind of hates himself for it. He vows to never hurt another person ever again because of it. But when an old man that he used to know years and years ago, decades ago, asks him to join him in Tokyo at his deathbed, he goes. He goes to say goodbye for the last time for this man he used to know. But this man turns out he wants Wolverine's powers, he wants to live forever, and he's offering Wolverine the ability to die, because life itself, the ability to live forever and see everybody that he always dies, is kind of a curse. He understands that about Wolverine, but at the end of the day, Wolverine's like, no thanks, I'm sorry you got sick, nice to see ya, and starts to leave. That's when the old man's daughter, or granddaughter rather, a hit is put out on her life, and for whatever reason, it's Wolverine's mission to protect her. He is her guardian angel. So let's start with some of the good things that I like about this movie. I like the fact that it is bold in its decision making. It does a lot of things that you wouldn't expect them to do for an X-Men movie, for a Wolverine movie, for any of this. It doesn't feel like it fits in the universe, but at the same time, that's a good thing because it deviated itself and made its own image from it. It made its own voice. It actually feels like a standalone Wolverine movie where X-Men Origins Wolverine didn't. It just felt like a weird, bad X-Men movie. I like the fish out of water element, taking Wolverine out of the United States and putting him in Tokyo. That was really cool, but what I really loved about this film was the vulnerability factor. Like James Bond in Skyfall, or like Tony Stark in Iron Man 3, he's put into a scenario where he's completely vulnerable, where normally he wouldn't be. He'd be indestructible, right? He's got adamantium everything and a healing factor that makes him so he lives forever. But something happens in this movie where he finds himself in a spot where he can die. He's 100% vulnerable. He can die, and we get to see another side of him as a character when it comes down to doing things for the right reason. He is a hero after all, so he has that hero complex, if you will. He's getting shot, he's getting stabbed, he's getting attacked, and he's not really able to heal like he once was. And I get it, Logan also had a vulnerable side to it as well because he's older. But the Wolverine did it first, and they did it differently, and I liked the way that they did it in this movie. So sue me, okay? Also, I like the violence in this movie. It is a brutal film. The other X-Men movies had Wolverine killing people, slicing and dicing them, but you didn't ever really see it. It was kind of a guessing matter, like the old Halloween movies where he stabs people and it's kind of stabbed off screen and you're like, well, I'm guessing he killed them. You never really see specifically where those claws end up, and in this movie you do, and every time that happens you're really digging it, even if there's not a lot of blood. There really isn't, but there is a lot of violence. In general, there's a lot of things going on in this movie that are really exciting. It's a flashy film that is a lot of fun to watch in general. That's the main thing about this movie. It's fun and it's exciting and it shows Wolverine in a new light, and a very welcoming new light at that. However, there is some bad things associated with this movie. My score for this movie did drop. My original score was 84%. I'll tell you what the new score is here in a little bit, so stick around for that. The main thing about this movie is it's a little bit confusing. I liked it when I first saw it because it was kind of like a mystery, but the problem with that was the film never takes a second to explain to the audience that it is a mystery, that Wolverine's mission is to discover why people are attacking this old man's granddaughter. It just happens, and he's protecting her because he's a protector, he's a hero, but there is no real explanation or exposition scene, I guess you could say, that explains to you why this is happening in the first place. So it can be very, very confusing to some people. For some people that like foreign films, specifically martial art films, they might be able to understand what's actually happening at the end of the day, because a big part of this movie, tonally, is a martial arts foreign film. But if you're not very familiar with that kind of world, you might not exactly understand why this is a thing and why Wolverine doesn't just leave when the old man dies. Why does he stick around? Yeah, bad things were happening, and I guess that shows integrity, but why should I care about all these other people in the movie? And that's another problem with this movie, is the other characters when it comes down to them versus Wolverine. Wolverine's great. He's fantastic. The other characters in this movie are kind of bland, kind of forgettable. A couple here and there are pretty good, but for the most part, I don't care about them. I don't care what makes them unique. They don't really stand out to me. And that's probably the problem here. Because, once again, I'm going to compare a little bit with the X-Men, obviously, because with the X-Men, it wasn't just Wolverine. Wolverine might have been the main character, he might have been at the forefront, but the other characters were unique as well. You didn't mind watching them apart from Wolverine. You did mind here, because they're not that interesting in this film. Another problem this movie had was it's a little bit too flashy. I said it was flashy before, and that's one of the problems where people say Logan is amazing and the Wolverine is just okay, because it's flashy. And from a cinematic standpoint, you don't really remember flashy. You have a good time when you're watching it. It's adrenaline rush, and that's fine and dandy. It's whatever it is, but it's not Logan, which from a cinematic standpoint made a movie that you can remember for the way that it's made. This was a movie that was made very well for when you're watching it, and only when you're watching it and not afterwards. It's an action film. It's a good action film. A lot of those action sequences are insanely great. Like the train sequence, unbelievable. And these action scenes are shot really well with adrenaline in mind, with pain in mind, right? Because this is the first time that Wolverine's really, really sensing pain, and they had to showcase that through editing and through camera work. And they do. They do a very, very good job. There's also a lot of great visuals in this film. But once again, that all piles into just the concept that you only notice it when you watch the movie. It's nothing that sticks with you after you see the movie. I'm sorry, it just isn't. I think I loved it a little bit more when I first saw it because it was so exciting for the first time. I hate comparing movies in general, and I hate even more comparing it to movies that haven't even been released yet. At that point, like Logan. But think about it. If you're going in to see this movie for the first time today as a blind audience member, there's a good chance that you probably have seen Logan and you're going back to see the other Wolverine movies. How can you not compare it to Logan at that point? I don't know. There are things that I love about this movie. There really are. There's things that I hold very near to me when I watch it, but at the same time, it's not as good as I remember it being either. Alright, so my original score was 84%. I can tell you now that it has dropped to 78%. Still pretty good, still an 8 out of 10 possible star rating, but it has dropped from the 80th percentile to the 70th percentile. As far as ranking it among the other X-Men movies that I've rewatched thus far, I would put it above First Class, which would put it as the third worst, but also third best, or fourth. I don't know, I'm losing track already. It's mid-range is the point. Guys, tell me what you thought of the Wolverine in the comments down below, and as for YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe, like it, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.